ultimately, the Lebanese economy cannot withstand any kind of bombing campaign from Israel, because Israel's bombing campaigns are historically devastating to the civilian population and the infrastructure in general. They do not give a shit. They will blow up entire fucking towns. They will blow up every building. They will blow up every residential building as a part of their modus operandi. We've talked about this quite a bit. Hezbollah has 2 million Shia Muslims to look after in Lebanon, and they run a massive social movement providing aid to them. The damage after the 2006 war was a major issue, and they had to ask for more funding from Iran, so economic impacts are important. Yes, exactly. Hezbollah handed Israel its only military loss in 2006, and they have so much experience fighting Sunni militias, including Daesh in Iraq and Syria. They will 100% lose in the long run, but it would be very Pyrrhic for the Israelis. And Ben Shapiro even said if Hezbollah got involved, that Israel should seriously consider using nuclear weapons. Yeah. That's... I like that we're referring to Ben Shapiro on Israel's like military policy, but the way that the belligerent way in which Israel wages war against civilian populations, to me at least, indicates that Ben Shapiro's not that far off with his analysis. So I don't think that they're going to fucking actually nuke Lebanon. But, you know, considering that they've dropped one Hiroshima equivalent of conventional missiles and rockets into Gaza so far, you know, anything is possible. Israel goes YOLO mode every single time. So there is no reason for them to ever listen to the Geneva suggestions. There is no reason for them to ever listen to the internationally recognized codes of conduct around waging war. They've never done that. And they also have an apartheid state. This is before we even talk about how Israel also is maintaining an apartheid state, which I need to talk about as well, because the major stress point here was the mistreatment of Palestinians and the ongoing pogroms in the West Bank. That is what is like the major point of contention, and why any kind of violent retaliation occurs from the Gazan front ever. It doesn't just materialize out of thin air. It literally fucking happens as a consequence of the Palestinians that are getting absolutely fucking destroyed in West Bank, despite the fact that they don't have anything to do with Hamas at all, other than the fact that they are Palestinian. So the entire purpose for Iran in the region is to say, hey, if you keep fucking ethnically cleansing Palestinians in Gaza, we are going to go into Israel. Like, we're going to fucking open up new fronts in this war, and you're going to have to deal with like a lot more of your civilians dying. And that is always a point of consideration, and it has been in the past as well. But one example I will give is this, okay? I feel as though in this last military operation, in the last militant operation on October 7th, which was very brutal, the Palestinian forces did not think that they were going to be as, in their minds, successful, okay, as they actually ended up being, with the human toll, with the civilian casualty, and with the amount of hostages that they were able to take. This is consistent with, of course, the Iranian messages that we've heard from them thus far, and that due to their achievement, and I'm using achievement on their, like, using achievement, not that it was like a good thing, okay, but due to what they were able to accomplish far beyond what they thought their capabilities were, that the Israeli retaliation, it was going to be devastating, and that given that they did not, the other regional actors did not realize it was going to be this brutal. I don't think that they were ready for a full-scale multiple front war against Israel. Okay? So, as it stands currently, Lebanese intel is saying that Israel knew and pulled troops on purpose. No, I don't believe in the 9/11 stuff. I've talked about this before. Like 9/11 was an inside job type shit. Like I talk about that all the time. I think the most reasonable is often the closest to the truth. And the most reasonable assessment is that they were absolutely and utterly, incredibly arrogant about the conditions of the occupation and about a way to immediately squash any kind of violent retaliation coming from Gaza. They were unprepared because they were arrogant. They were unprepared because they had moved forces that have been engaging in, I guess, domestic suppression rather than like actual, real military operations into the West Bank at the behest of Itamar Ben-Gvir and his violent ambitions in completely ethnically cleansing the West Bank. The more the 500,000, 470,000 settlers get violent in the West Bank, the more you have to have additional IDF presence there in order to maintain that violence, in order to contain that violence, but also to maintain that violence. So I think that was the most important reason. I think it was arrogance more than a deliberate inaction. I think, like, for example, not listening to other intelligence agencies, foreign intelligence agencies, and their warnings, in my opinion, was not, oh yeah, this is fine, like, we want them to attack Israel so we can violently retaliate and take over and possibly even annex northern Gaza. But instead, I believe it was because they were like, what the fuck are they going to do? It was more so, I think it was more arrogance than it was deliberately refusing to take this seriously. Okay? What is this? Dude, don't send me shit like this, because send me the actual article, please. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, we've suffered heavy losses in Gaza in the last 24 hours. I doubt that they would. I don't know if he actually said that, but if he did actually say that, please send me a fucking actual link to an article and not like a fucking photo. So Carter Center calls for Gaza ceasefire, return of hostages. Oh, man. How about you sit this one out, King? You know? Just sit this one out. You know what I mean? You've done enough, sir. You've done enough. How can Yemen fight a war given their own dire humanitarian crisis? The humanitarian crisis is no longer as bad as it once was, as far as I understand it. given the Iranian-Saudi normalization agreement, and one of the conditions of said normalization agreement conducted by China being the cessation of hostile bombing campaigns and a blockade on Yemen. So apparently 2 IDF soldiers were killed, and troops overrun Jabalia Hamas post, kill commander, 50 terrorists is what they're saying. So the Jabalia Gaza, the Jabalia refugee camp bombing is being considered a successful strike, knowing full well that there were civilians there, because they're saying that they killed a commander, a military commander. So Yemen isn't declaring war on Israel. A Yemeni group, Houthis, are declaring war on Israel. Yes, but it's the Iranian side, and it's still Houthis are in control of Yemen. What you're describing is literally the conflict in general, that one side is Saudi-backed, but also ultimately under blockade. The entirety of Yemen is under blockade and being bombed by the Saudis, which has created a genocide. It's still Yemen. They're the government. Saying that it's it doesn't, saying that they're not an expression of the government is I don't know, it's a little ridiculous. Anyway, let's get started. Okay. Like I said, my speculation, my speculation is this is Hasan's speculation alert, is that it doesn't seem very likely, given what they've done so far. It doesn't seem very likely that Hezbollah or Iran in general is all too interested in opening up additional fronts. And I say this at a time when you have Yemen missile strikes in Israel. And as Elent News correctly is saying, again, the distance inhibits the level and amount of strikes that Israel can do in retaliation. That's partly why they made the decision to launch missiles and drones. So they have drones and missiles in their capabilities, some of which can obviously reach Israel. And the retaliation all the way down to fucking Yemen from Israel will be limited because of proximity. Okay? That's it. That's why I laughed at the notion of like opening up a 6-front war or whatever with Yemen, with Houthi rebels like fighting in, I don't know, I guess like the southern point of Israel or something. Because how the fuck would they get there? Would they use their navy? Or would they fly over there? Like, would they traverse through the desert over a massive amount of over a massive Saudi territory, which is a country that had a ruthless and brutal blockade that caused a genocide in Yemen until not that long ago? It's just not going to happen. But they still can lob rockets and assume that Israel can not really retaliate in the same way that it could to Lebanon because it's too far. And yes, Crit C is correct. Houthis had already attempted to launch missiles that were intercepted in the Red Sea. These ones were not. All of this to me signals that that the Iranian-backed forces are not trying to actively engage with Israel beyond pot shots.
50 people are said to have been killed and many more injured in a blast at the Jabalia Refugee.
And yes, Secretary of Antifa, you are correct. it seems to me like the Western world will continue to look the other way or outright champion the ongoing ethnic cleansing in Gaza and the pogroms in the West Bank, with no end in sight, and that there will not be some kind of, I might be totally wrong, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be this violent retaliation from Iran-backed militias in the region that draw Israel's attention elsewhere. So it just kind of seems like what is happening thus far is going to continue happening until, I guess, the Israel's interest in blood is satiated.
Refugee camp in northern Gaza. Well, those figures come from the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, which also says the camp came under Israeli fire. We're yet to hear from the Israeli military. The BBC is still establishing the details. Pictures from the scene, as you can see, show people searching for survivors and pulling bodies from the rubble. Now, Israel earlier said its forces are striking targets in all parts of Gaza, with fierce battles being reported with Hamas. Let me show you these pictures from Israel's defense forces showing their troops carrying out ground operations. The IDF says it has encountered anti-tank missiles and machine gun fire as they advance into Gaza. A spokesman said it was hunting commanders of Hamas and attacking infrastructure. Meanwhile, this video was released by Hamas. They say that the people you can see surrounded by tanks are in a firefight with Israeli soldiers in northern Gaza over the weekend. The Palestinian Red Crescent says the area around the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City has again been under heavy
Israel, since then, Israel's, of course, confirmed that the strike was done by them on Jabalia.
The health ministry says more than 8,500 people have been killed in the past 3 weeks. Israel says over 1,400 Israelis were killed in the Hamas attacks on October the 7th. Well, let's go straight to our diplomatic correspondent, Paul Adams, who's in Jerusalem. And Paul, what more can you tell us about the blast at the Jabalia camp?
Well, Matthew, I think you've shown some of the pictures. They are pretty shocking. That crater is huge, an absolutely enormous hole surrounded by vast quantities of rubble, and then homes and buildings around there that have been obviously severely damaged, either in the course of this incident or perhaps over the course of the last 3 weeks. Jabalia, in case viewers are wondering, is the largest of the refugee camps in the Gaza Strip, home to around 120,000 people before this war began, packed into an area of about 1.5 square kilometers. It's not tents, it's buildings that have been there for decades and tightly packed streets. And we think, judging by the number of people who are there looking in the rubble to try and find bodies and survivors, there are still hundreds, maybe thousands of people still in the area, despite days and days of Israeli warnings for people to leave northern Gaza. So it is likely that any airstrike on Jabalia, and this does...
How is this okay? I can't believe this. I mean, what's it say? What do we say at this point? Just, there's nothing. It's not okay. There's not really much people can do in this situation. It's just you have to keep applying pressure to Western governments to shut the money faucet and shut the bomb faucet, or at least threaten to shut the missile faucet and the money faucet to Israel, unless they do a ceasefire and engage in hostage negotiations. Not okay. Don't feel hopeless. Just continue applying pressure. Call your congresspersons, demand a ceasefire. Hope that they will educate people on what's going on, with hopes that they will stop, with hopes that at least the Western government will apply some kind of pressure. Because that's the thing that the Israeli government fears the most. If they did not fear Western pressure and Western retaliation in the form of like, not sanctions necessarily, but like even a threat that they will stop giving an open check to Israel, they wouldn't always engage in Western-focused propaganda so aggressively. I'm not hopeless. I'm not hopeless at all. I mean, I'm sad. I'm sad seeing the death toll. It's impossible not to feel sad when you know that 3,000 children have been ruthlessly slaughtered by the Israeli Air Forces, by the Israeli Defense Force, by the Israeli occupying force. 3,000 more children have been murdered by Israel in the last 3 weeks than the entirety of children that died, that were killed, died in war since 2019. Which includes Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Think about that. Meanwhile, you see the fucking psychotic theatrics that are deeply anti-Semitic and trivializing of the Holocaust from Gilad Erdan and the UN Commission, the Israeli ambassadors to the UN, putting on a fucking Holocaust star, a Star of David, invoking the Holocaust to keep the bombing on the children continuing. Just absolutely unimaginable, dude. Like, oh, dude, it's my personal Holocaust. If you don't let me kill 3,000 more children, that's the message you want to send to the international community. What a fucking barbaric and completely and utterly psychotic thing to do. Please. It's ridiculous. No one trivializes the Holocaust more than Israeli officials. It's fucking nuts. Like the never again, the Star of David, like putting it on, adorning the Star of David at the UN that says never again in it, while you are currently engaging in an ethnic cleansing campaign against a population that is 50% children. Come on. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it's like, it would be funny if it wasn't so fucking psychotic. Here is the official response, and this is the Times of Israel military correspondent, Emmanuel Fabian, Manny Fabian. I mean, he's a pretty good resource to understand what the fuck the IDF's doing. According to the IDF, Ibrahim Biari was one of the Hamas commanders responsible for directing members of the terror group's elite Nakba forces to invade Israel on October 7th. The IDF says the airstrike in Jabalia was part of a wide-scale strike on Hamas operatives and infrastructure belonging to the terror group's Central Jabalia Battalion. According to the IDF, the Central Jabalia Battalion took control of several civilian buildings in the area. The strike damaged Hamas's command and control in the area, as well as its ability to direct military activity against IDF soldiers operating throughout the Gaza Strip, the army says in a statement. So yeah, this is the second thing that Israel does. If they don't take responsibility and immediately blame Hamas or Islamic Jihad or whatever, then they will take responsibility and say, we told you there's Hamas there. It says, numerous terrorists were killed with Biari, and underground terror infrastructure embedded beneath the buildings used by terrorists also collapsed after the strike. Yeah, this part I don't believe at all, but whatever. The IDF also says it reiterates its call to the residents of the area to move south for their safety. Now, if you want to understand the brutality, here is the here's the IDF attack and its response from an IDF spokesperson talking directly to Wolf Blitzer.
Yes, I can. We were focused again on our target, a senior commander, Wolf, and we'll be updating you with more data as the hour moves ahead.
But even if that Hamas commander was there amidst all those Palestinian refugees who are in that Jabalia refugee camp, Israel still went ahead and dropped a bomb there, attempting to kill this Hamas commander, knowing that a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, presumably would be killed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf. We're focused on this commander.
Motherfucker's Scottish, bro. What the fuck? Yo! At first, I thought he had an Israeli accent of sorts that I had never heard. Yo! What the fuck? Are my ears deceiving me? Are you fucking telling me he moved to Israel when he was 4 years old?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf. We're focused on this commander, again, who you'll get more data who this man was. Killed many Israelis. We're doing everything we can. It's a very complicated battle space. There could be infrastructure there. There could be tunnels there. We're still looking into it, and we'll give you more data as the hour moves ahead.
Yo, I'm losing it. Oh my God, I'm fucking losing it, dude. Like, listen, Wolf, there was children there, but we had to kill them.
But you know that there are a lot of refugees, a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children in that refugee camp as well, right?
This is the tragedy of war, Wolf. I mean, as you know...
Oh, he's so sad. Look at how sad he is, man. You don't understand. Wolf, it's a tragedy. These children have to be fucking slaughtered. Okay? They have to be slaughtered.
We've been saying for days, move south. Civilians that are not involved with Hamas, please move south.
I'm just trying to get a little bit more information. You knew there were civilians there. You knew there were refugees, all sorts of refugees, but you decided to still drop a bomb on that refugee camp, attempting to kill the Hamas commander. By the way, was he killed?
I can't confirm yet. There'll be more updated. Yes, we know that he was killed. About the civilians there, we're doing everything we can to minimize. I'll say it again.
Does anyone believe this? Like, I mean, you have to have an Israeli boot lodged so far up your fucking mouth that it is like impacting your brainstem to be like, yeah, no, they are definitely trying. They're trying, but oh God, they're just so silly. They're silly billies. Like, oh man, they're trying so hard, except 3,000 children. It's just such a sad state of affairs. They try so fucking hard. I love the argument that people always fucking turn around and present to me, which is so utterly disgusting, morally abhorrent, and also stupid, where it's like, oh, they could just nuke Gaza. No, they can't. You want to know why they can't just fucking nuke Gaza? Because it's literally like... It's like nuking North Carolina from the border of South Carolina. You can't fucking just nuke a town next door, okay? The idea that if they wanted to do ethnic cleansing, they could do it so much better. No, killing 2 million citizens is very difficult, okay? It is a very difficult endeavor. It is not as easy as you think it is. It takes a long-ass fucking time. And not only that, but also, Israel has to do it in a way where, like, the rest of the world doesn't go, dude, what the fuck are you doing? This is literally the Holocaust. So they have to do it in a way that makes it seem like they're doing it morally. Although everything that Israel is doing fits the legal definition of an apartheid state, and everything Israel is doing in Gaza right now especially fits the legal definition of a genocide, And don't listen to me, listen to a Holocaust historian who has said as much, okay? Hold on. Here is Israeli historian and Holocaust scholar claiming that Israel's treatment of Palestinians in Gaza is a textbook case of genocide. This was, of course, at a time when only, and I can't believe I'm saying this, 2,778 people had been killed, with around 10,000 being wounded. This is from Roz Segal. He wrote an article on the Jewish Currents, professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Stockton University. Segal wrote that Israeli leaders and officials have made their intent clear, noting Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant's comments about fighting human animals, and Israeli Defense spokesperson Daniel Hagari saying the emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy. If you listen to the IDF telling you that there are, if you listen to the IDF and believe them when they are telling you, oh, there's Hamas here, that's why we had to blow them up, then why don't you fucking listen to them when they also said, we're shutting off their food, we're shutting off their water, they are human animals, we do not care about their safety and security, we are there to bomb indiscriminately. It seems like a lot of people want to just not hear that part of the conversation and only focus on the parts where Israel, in the aftermath of yet another bombing campaign that was objectively brutal and unimaginably cruel, says, oh, they deserved it. Israel's official account on X, formerly known as Twitter, said, unlike the barbaric enemy we're fighting, we do everything we can to keep innocent civilians safe. They don't. They do not. Segal said Israel is perpetrating 3 of the 5 acts that fall under the UN Convention's definition. The dropping of thousands and thousands of bombs in a couple days, including phosphorus bombs, as we heard, on one of the most densely populated areas around the world, together with these proclamations of intent. This indeed constitutes genocidal killing, which is the first act. Israel is also perpetuating act number 2 and 3. That is, causing serious bodily or mental harm and creating conditions designed to bring about the destruction of a group by cutting off water, food, and supply of energy, bombing hospitals, ordering the fast evacuation of hospitals. Segal added, noting that the World Health Organization has called the orders to evacuate hospitals a death sentence for the sick and injured. So we're seeing the combination of genocidal acts with special intent. This indeed is a textbook case of genocide, he said. In his op-ed, Segal also said that the leaders in the West had reinforced this racist rhetoric of Israeli leaders and officials by describing Hamas's attacks as evil. This dehumanizing language is clearly calculated to justify the wide-scale destruction of Palestinian lives. The assertion of evil in its absolutism elides distinctions between Hamas militants and Gazan civilians and includes the broader context of colonization and occupation, he wrote. Told Democracy Now! That the attack by Hamas was a horrendous war crime, but using the term evil to describe the militant group is to decontextualize and enhance the widespread fantasies of Israelis today that they are fighting Nazis. He referred to a recent television interview where former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett lashed out at an anchor asking about the Palestinian civilians suffering in Gaza by declaring, "We're fighting Nazis." There's a long history of this shameful use of the Holocaust memory, which Israeli politicians have used to justify, rationalize, deny, distort, disavow mass violence against Palestinians, Segal said. And it has allowed also a view to develop that sees Israel as somehow exceptional, providing it impunity. The truth, however, is that all perpetrators of genocide actually see their victims as dangerous, vicious, as inhuman. That's how the Nazis saw the Jews, and that's how today Israelis see Palestinians. They are behaving in a manner that is absolutely consistent in the same exact way that Nazis behaved during World War II, okay? In their treatment of Jewish people. This is not my assessment. This is Holocaust scholar Roz Siegel's assessment. Anyone that tries to declare that this is anti-Semitic is just an absolute fucking delusional moron. Anyway, anyone have a link to the article? It's a Newsweek article, but you can also find the interview on Democracy Now! Wow, calling anyone you disagree with a delusional moron, typical. No, I'm calling people that specifically deny the absolute truth that is in front of their eyes if they choose to see it. You know? If you consider what Israel is doing in Gaza anything but absolute truth of the internet, no, it's not the... Don't try to trivialize this, okay? If you consider what Israel is doing in Gaza anything but a deliberate ethnic cleansing campaign, okay, that fits the legal standards of genocide, you are blind. You have to be delusional.